Hi, I'm Chris McBrien, a Gen Xer, and the pop culture from my generation is awesome.
And I'm Yancy Eaton, a millennial, and the pop culture from my generation is dope.
Episode 52, Oh Canada, the best Canadian actors of all time. Hey, Chris McBrien here. This is Pop Goes Your World, and we're back. We took a little bit of time off. For those of you that listen to the show on a regular basis, I just want to touch base and just let you know I did put it up to Twitter, but we obviously didn't have a chance to do a show over the last month or so. Yancy, as you may or may not know, is from South Florida, and obviously they're dealing with the Hurricane Irma down there, so Yancy had lost power in his house, and now he's doing okay. Things are doing okay, but he still hasn't got his internet back. So it's been about a month now that he's been enduring all that stuff, and we decided, the show must go on. So, we're still going to do a couple episodes of the show, but, until Yancy is back up and running on the internet, I reached out to our good friend, caveman himself, Derek Myers, and said, Derek, you want to come on the show? You're not going to replace Yancy. No one can replace Yancy, of course. But, Derek, would you mind coming on the show and just sitting in for an episode or two until Yancy gets back? And, of course, Derek said yes. So, Derek, thanks a lot for doing that. I really appreciate it.
I'm happy to be on, Chris. And again, as you mentioned, we have our best wishes out to Yancy and his friends and family, and hopefully everyone's doing okay. And from what we've heard, they are, so that's great. And certainly can't replace him, but we will. I'll do my best to try and fill his shoes and keep the listeners entertained until he can come back.
Well, we appreciate it. It's always good having you on. I should mention, too, off the top of the show, a big thanks again to everyone out there that listens to the show and took the time to nominate us for the podcast awards. That was great. We didn't end up taking home the trophy, Derek. It's okay. It's all good. We got nominated, and that's all that matters, in our first year on the show, so that's really cool. The show that actually won in the category was called We're Drunk and We Know Things. And funny enough, when they mentioned, and the winner is We're Drunk and We Know Things, I thought they were talking about us. I don't know. I thought, hey, they're describing the show, but no, it wasn't us. The fact that we got nominated, you always hear that cliche, right? That it's an honor. It really is.
As someone who's never been in the performing arts, I always think that the best actors are the ones that don't win when they cut over to them after they announce the real winner's name and they're all there smiling and clapping, and I'm like, that guy needs an Oscar. Look at that. He looks like he's not angry at all, and he is livid.
Yeah. Boy, can he act.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we decided, since Yancy it can't be with us this week, and we've got both of us on here, and we're both Canadian, that what would be better than if we did an episode that was sort of Canadian-centric. And the thing is, even if you're American and listen to the show, you can relate to it because there's so many great Canadian actors in Hollywood. Like the thing is, considering the fact, Eric, that we're 1/10 the size of the United States, we sure funnel a lot of talent into the entertainment industry, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And I think some of the best Canadian performers are proudly Canadian, and whenever they're doing appearances or they're on talk shows, they are always touting their heritage, the fact that they're from Canada but working in the States. And I think that many of the people on our list, I know most of the people on my list, I'd be amazed if any of the American listeners are going to be surprised when I say, oh, my number 5 pick is so-and-so, and he's Canadian. And you're going to go, yeah, no kidding, we all knew that.
The only thing is that now I know I've been accused from time to time by some people of being textbook, and I might be tonight. Who knows? I might have a couple textbook answers, but I think that sometimes I pull some out of my ass that are just completely they go, what? What is that? And I definitely have one on my list tonight that's going to make you go, what? Really? So, and I think, a lot of people listen and people are like, I've never heard of that guy. But, if you have, you're going to be like, oh man, I totally relate to it. That's all I can say. So anyway, we're going to run down our top 5, best Canadian actors of all time. You ready to hit it?
Absolutely.
Okay, here we go. Yancy, what the hell are you doing to me?
There's a girl topless in it. I mean, I'm sure you probably have seen it.
Boom, 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 boom,
Yep.
boom, 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 boom.
Spoilers ahead.
But he was not my favorite pilot of any of these Star Wars movies. That, of course, was Porkins.
He might be one of my favorite actors.
That's some good
I think that's fair. I do think that's fair.
The fact that we're kind of nerds.
Textbook nerds.
I thought I was looking at my mother's old but that's in Ohio.
How disappointed was your son whenever you said, I'm going to go take you to see Bare Naked Ladies? And he's like, oh, it's just a concert.
What is going on, man? Okay, now before we get started, Caveman, before we go back and forth and do our list, and we mention our favorite Canadian actors of all time, I just would like to mention what I consider to be the worst Canadian actor of all time. So, Caveman, just to put you on the spot, do you have any off the top of your head, any Canadian actors you can think of that you sort of dislike or
you know what? Let me think about it while we're doing our show,
I'll run down my pick, and then you can kind of think of it, because this is one who, not only do I not like this actor, I wish I could kind of disown him just as a country, because and it's Hayden Christensen. And, and as you know, Caveman, around here, I always say that the prequels don't exist, right? Like, because they're so bad.
Prequels, what are those?
Yeah, and one of the reasons they're so bad is, well, there's like 100 reasons why they suck, but one of the main reasons is Hayden Christensen. And if, I'm telling you, here's the thing. If you had asked me after the original trilogy, after I watched the original Star Wars trilogy, if you come to me and said, hey, listen, how do you think Darth Vader looks under the mask? Like when he was younger. And if you asked me to make a list of all the descriptors and all the people that he might look like, Hayden Christensen would have been dead last on that list. So, first of all, the way that I see, and this is kind of my view of the prequels in general, first of all, who gives a shit what he looks like? Like, first of all, he's the villain. He's not the protagonist, so who gives a shit? So why even go there? But anyway, the answer to the answer that I would give is, what does Darth Vader look like when he's younger? You know what my answer would be? A younger version of Sebastian Shaw. Simple.
That's a good answer.
Or in other words,
a good answer.
Yeah, in other words, not Hayden Christensen. Like I
would also accept something resembling Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, we could maybe go with that.
That would make sense. I'd be okay with that too.
And Hayden Christensen, he can't act at all. He scowls at the camera, and the fact that Lucas ruined the end of Jedi by superimposing him over the ghost of Sebastian Shaw just will always be a sore point for me. That, to me, was the greatest ending of any movie I had ever seen when I watched the end of Jedi the first time. I was like, oh my God, that is perfect. To see Darth Vader there, and he's got his hair, and there's no scars, and he's smiling, and it's Sebastian Shaw. I was like, oh man, it just made me feel so good. And then it all got ruined. So anyway, that's just my rant.
Chris, if this upsets you so much, you should mention it more often on the podcast.
I'll take that to heart. Okay, so let's run down the best Canadian actors of all time, shall we? I'll let you go first. You're the guest. Okay. Let's start at your number 5, lay it out, and then we'll work our way up from there.
So again, I want to say that I'm not going with so much best as much as my personal favorite. Now, these people are all talented in their own right, but from the point of view, these are favorites. And you know what? I got to say up front, this is in no particular order because I really had a hard time ranking them from 1 to 5. I just went, here's my list of 20. Now it's down to 10. Now it's down to 5. I'm going to stick with these 5. Here they are. I didn't want to do any of them a disservice of saying this one is better than that one because I think they're all great in their own rights. So I'm going to start the list with one of my favorites. You might have first seen him on TV in the mid-'80s as Alex P. Keaton on Family Ties.
Yes.
We're talking about Michael J. Fox. Michael J. Fox is from Edmonton, Alberta. And that was my first exposure to Michael J. Fox was on Family Ties Thursday nights. And then, of course, 1985 was a big year for Michael J. Fox. He was in one of my probably top 20 favorite movies of all time, Back to the Future, which is fantastic. It's one of those movies that when it's on TV, I just stop what I'm doing to finish watching it, even though I've seen the movie 100 times. Yep. He was also in Teen Wolf. Again, it's one of those guilty pleasure movies. Some people love it, some people hate it.
And my ultimate teen crush was Boof.
Yes, I remember. So, 85, a big year for Michael J. Fox. And then, of course, he went back to doing Family Ties until the late 80s. He ended up, he's been in tons of stuff since then. He was in Spin City from 1996 to 2001. And this was, a chance for him to be back on TV, but as a grown-up instead of as, the teenage son. And I wasn't a big fan of the show, but I was certainly a big fan of his work when I watched it. And then more recently, he was on The Good Wife, which is a show I loved. He had a recurring character. He appeared in 26 episodes.
And he was a bad guy, too.
He was such a bad guy. Like, he was the villain that you love to hate. And it was such a departure from the kind of lovable, likable, boy next door, kid does well kind of roles he had typically been known for. So it was really good. So anyway, number 5 on my list, Michael J. Fox.
Very good. There might be a little bit of crossover between our lists, and we don't share them before we come in. But it's all good. It's all good. Okay, so my number 5, I'm going to go with Donald Sutherland. Okay? Now, I know he was in the Hunger Games movies, but I'll tell you what, unless you've had a chance to see some of his early work, like, I don't think you can appreciate just how good of an actor Donald Sutherland is. When I think of him, I think of his work in movies like MASH and Clute and Ordinary People, The Eagle Has Landed. But the thing is, for me, he's also done some other stuff that I like Animal House and Gas, like this Canadian movie, Gas, was good. He was in the Kentucky Fried Movie and Max Dugan Returns. And I think he is one of the most unique actors of his generation because he doesn't have sort of those leading man good looks, like, or that charm. Instead, he's like this quirky character actor. He's got this vibe about him. But the thing is, he's a really, really, really good actor. And the other thing, too, is if you only know Hawkeye from MASH as Alan Alda, I'd suggest going back and watching the 1970 Robert Altman film because Donald Sutherland was incredible in that movie. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Alan Alda because what he did in the role was absolutely brilliant. It's just, I've always sort of thought Donald Sutherland, he's been kind of underrated, for his whole career. And I think he's always been amazing in his role. So he's my number 5. Okay.
Excellent.
Yep.
He was almost made my top 5, Chris. He was like my number 6.
Yeah. He's okay. So you're number 4. Who do you got?
My number 4. Okay. This famous Canadian actor is really, at the top of his game right now. I just want to say, in addition to all of his work as an actor, this guy has been married to 2 of the most beautiful women ever. He was married to Scarlett Johansson, and then they got divorced, and now he's married to Blake Lively. I'm talking about none other than Deadpool himself, Ryan Reynolds from Vancouver, BC. And Ryan Reynolds is the kind of guy that I think people, there's a love and hate. You either love him or hate him. There doesn't seem to be any middle ground with him. But the people that like him, like me, want to believe that he's like pretty much every character he's ever played. You think, that's a guy I would want to hang out with. I'd want to have a beer with. I'd be happy to, go to a ball game with this guy. Like, he just comes across as being such a nice guy. And everything I've read always seems like he's genuine. So, I mean, he started off, his big break was on the TV show Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place. Yep. Ran from 98 to 2001. And
he was kind of like that goofy slacker kind of guy on there, wasn't he? Like,
it's the exact character he always seems to play in that. The smart ass, quick talking, lovable scamp kind of guy. And he really made his mark on that. And interesting side note, another fairly famous Canadian, Nathan Fillion, was also in that show as well. Got a break there. In any case, Ryan Reynolds after that was in Van Wilder, which I think is it was probably one of his first bigger movies, sort of put him on the map. Again, his Van Wilder character was almost the same as the character he played on the show. And since then, he's been in a ton of different comedies and such. For the most part, he always seems to play the same character. But there's a couple of movies that he was in that he did really well. There's one called Definitely Maybe from 2008 where he plays a single dad, and it's really good. It's one of those ones where it's a chick flick and you don't want to necessarily admit that you've seen it or enjoyed it, but it was actually quite good. So if you're a fan of Ryan Reynolds and you only know him from Deadpool or Van Wilder, like, this is one of those movies where you get to see, like, this guy actually has some talent. Like, he's a decent actor. He's got some range. Also, one of my personal favorites of his was a movie called Waiting from 2005. This is a movie. It takes place in like a 1 or 2 days in like a restaurant. It was like a TGI Fridays or something where they're the wait staff, they're all waiters. And if you like the movie Clerks by Kevin Smith from the mid-90s, this is that kind of movie. It's definitely that filthy and raunchy, except it's about waiters. So if you've ever had a job in the food service industry and you haven't seen Waiting, I would strongly encourage you to go and find a copy, download it, buy it, pick it up, stream it, what have you. But so anyway, my number 4 is Ryan Reynolds, currently making the rounds as Deadpool.
Yeah, it's funny. I mentioned to my wife that I was going to be doing this show. I said, hey, we're going back in the studio to do the show tonight. She was like, oh, what are you doing? I said, best Canadian actors of all time. She's like, oh, well, you have to mention Ryan Gosling and Ryan Reynolds. I'm like, well, why? Because you like them both? Like, do you think they're good actors? No, I think they're hot. I'm like, oh, yeah. Okay, of course, that's why I'm going to mention it. But, so anyway, it got into the show, because I certainly ain't mentioned either one of those guys. Okay, so my number 4, okay, this is where we're going to go off on a bit of a tangent here. So just hear me out on this one, okay, Cave?
Okay.
One thing I always try to look for in what I consider to be a good actor is a quality of uniqueness. Okay, so it's not just enough to be a good actor. Like, I mean, the world's full of good actors, right? So what's always sort of drawn me to certain actors is some of the intangible qualities that set them apart. So my number 4 is Chris Makepeace. And Chris Makepeace, for people who are going, what? Who the heck is this?
I have no idea who that is.
Okay, so Chris Makepeace is a Canadian actor. He had a very, very short career, but it was a good one. At least in my opinion, anyway, it was. So it pretty much, his career came down to really basically 2 roles. But they were 2 of my absolute favorite movies from when I was a kid. So he's always been an actor that I've liked and I always related to. So one was Meatballs, and he was Rudy Gurner, of course, in that movie. And another movie that I absolutely loved when I was a kid, and that was My Bodyguard. And so for anyone that thinks, and you probably have never heard of it, but if anyone that thinks there's no good teen movies outside of maybe John Hughes, I would challenge you to go and find and watch My Bodyguard. It's from 1980, and it stars Chris Makepeace as Clifford Peach. And basically, the premise of the movie is his dad gets a new job in a new city, so he moves to a new school, and of course, he runs into the school bullies. And the head bully is played by Matt Dillon. And the thing is, instead of just letting these bullies push him around, what he does is he goes and recruits this kind of big loner guy that everyone's scared of, and he makes this guy be his bodyguard to protect him from the bullies. And have you ever seen that movie, Caveman? Are you familiar with it?
It's ringing bells. I think I might have seen it in the 80s, but I have certainly not seen it since then.
It's incredible. It's directed by Tony Bill, and it's actually pretty seminal too, because there's actors like Adam Baldwin, who played Linderman, the bodyguard in it, and it was Joan Cusack's first movie role, and Jennifer Beals was in it, and George Wendt, I think, was his first movie role too. So the thing about the movie My Bodyguard that I like, that's unlike a lot of movies about teenagers, is it's incredibly real. Like, the characters are real. They deal with real issues like bullying, like I mentioned, and they talk about suicide and mental health and violence. And the thing was, at the time when the movie came out, I had just moved to a new school, and I was dealing with a set of bullies, and one bully in particular. And I saw this movie, and I just related to it immediately. And it also made me believe that I could fight back too. And I did. So the movie really, really holds a special place in my heart. And I know lots of people talk about how they relate to a certain movie or a particular scene. That is this movie for me. And it had a profound impact on me when I was young. And I just thought Chris Makepeace was one of the most relatable movie actors I'd ever seen in my entire life. And of course, he was in Meatballs. And I already mentioned previously on the podcast how much I love that movie. But I think a lot of people may have never heard of him, but to me, Chris Makepeace is one of my favorite Canadian actors of all time. So I wanted to get him in there. That's my number 4. So kind of weird, but number 3 for you.
Well, if I was you, I would find Chris Makepeace through social media and send him a link to this podcast, because it's probably the first press he's had in a decade.
But very deservedly so.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I mean, you've just been singing his praises. Suddenly he's
awesome.
going to, skyrocket up on Twitter and IMDb. People are going to be looking him up. Who the heck is this guy? All right. So number 3 on my list, I am going to go with William Shatner, Captain Kirk himself. All right. William Shatner, born in Montreal, Quebec.
That is a good choice.
Oh, my.
Absolutely it is. So, I think the vast majority of our listeners are going to know William Shatner mostly from Star Trek. He was Captain Kirk in Star Trek in the 60s. He was Captain Kirk in Star Trek when they did 6 movies with the original cast and the 7th movie with the next gen cast. He is Star Trek all over the place, and obviously as social media has become a thing over the last decade or so, he's become a big social media guy as well. He's got a pop culture presence. He's at conventions the whole bit. He's really taken to heart in his more senior years the fame that has come from his Captain Kirk celebrity. But I mean, he also appeared in a number of other things before Star Trek. He was in a legal drama called The Defenders in the mid-'60s, and got a lot of critical acclaim for that. And after Star Trek, I mean, he ended up he was in the television show T.J. Hooker for 5 years, from 82 to 86. So I mean, the guy's got some chops. And then not really known for comedy per se, but in the 90s, he was in Third Rock from the Sun, if you remember that show. He had a small role, but appeared in a number of episodes as the Big Giant Head. And then in 2004, he was in Boston Legal, playing the role of Denny Crane.
Oh, he was great.
I came to Boston Legal a few years after it started airing, and I could not believe how good William Shatner was in that. He ended up being nominated. He ended up winning 2 Emmys for playing Denny Crane and a Golden Globe. And let me tell you, if he had been any other actor, like he was known at that point as the Star Trek guy, and now he's doing serious drama, but he's still the Star Trek guy. And he won these awards, and a lot of people were saying things like, well, it's for his body of work. You know, you get that for the Oscars a lot. Oh, Leonardo DiCaprio won for The Revenant, not a great movie, but it's for his body of work. I got to disagree. I think if this had been any other actor who had won playing this role and done this good a job, that would have been the headline. It would have been like, you know, this actor playing this role won these awards. Isn't he fantastic? But I think that his win was almost downplayed, by the fact that he was the Star Trek guy, which is unfortunate, because if you're a fan of Shatner and you have not seen Boston Legal, do yourself a favor, find it. It's also starring James Spader. It's got a number of other people whose names are escaping me now who have gone on to do great things. You're going to go, oh, I know her. The mom from Modern Family's in it, not Sofia Vergara, the other one, the blonde one who keeps winning all the Emmys. Fantastic cast, fantastic show. So anyway, that's enough rambling on William Shatner. Is my number 3 greatest Canadian actor of all time.
I like how you mentioned how he kind of segued into comedy, because you also got to remember he was in Airplane 2, the sequel, and Airplane was really known for taking serious actors and throwing them into these comedic roles, and they did it with him in Airplane 2, the sequel. But for me, 1986, when he was on SNL, when he did that sketch, remember that sketch that he did about, he was at like a Comic-Con convention,
Star Trek convention,
and he just turns on the fans. He's like, you with the ears, have you ever kissed a woman? Get out of your parents' basements, and then all this, and it was just so funny. So that was so good. That's a good pick. Okay, my number 3, I'm going with John Candy, and I like the thing with John Candy is I think there's a lot more than met the eye with John Candy, and let me delve into that a little bit. So when it came to just absolute likability, there was no one else quite like him. And he obviously died way too young. I remember when I heard the news back in 94, I was truly, truly sad. And he was something else. But the thing is, when a lot of people think of him, they think about his movies. And rightly so. They were good. No question. But to me, John Candy's gift to the world, and the reason that I will always love that guy, was the work he did on SCTV. He was unreal. And it didn't matter what role he did on that show, he killed it. And the thing that made him different than most actors that were kind of similar to his kind of style is that instead of just playing that kind of like lovable, roly-poly, chubby guy, he always had a bit of an edge to his stuff. And the thing is, like, when he went into Hollywood and he started making movies, I feel like Hollywood kind of pigeonholed him into those kind of lovable big guy roles, especially something like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which, don't get me wrong, it was a great movie, but that kind of played up the stereotype a little bit. The guy was never going to be this leading man type, he was always sort of destined to be a character actor, although he was definitely one to steal every scene that he was in. If you think about Home Alone, when he did that scene with Catherine O'Hara in the back of the truck, which was completely improvised, by the way, he almost stole that entire movie. It was so good. And I always actually thought his best movie role was actually as Ox in Stripes, because to me, in that role, he was the big kind of oafy kind of guy. But again, like I mentioned before, he had a bit of an edge to him. He bullied that cruiser. He tried to choke Russell when Russell was making fun. He mud wrestled, and then he beat the hell out of a bunch of women at a strip club. And Caveman, have you ever heard of a movie called Going Berserk?
No, I can't say that I have.
Little Canadian movie, but it's awesome. And it's got John Candy, Joe Flaherty, and Eugene Levy in it. And the reason I mention it, again, if you only know John Candy from something like Spaceballs, which is amazing, of course, but again, in Spaceballs, he was that lovable character, Barf, right? And if you watch him do something like Going Berserk, or even in Splash, his role in Splash, he brings an edge to those roles. And I think that's always what made him special. So, he wasn't just that big lovable guy. He was a really interesting guy. But like I said, movies aside, what he did on SCTV was otherworldly, in my opinion. Like Julia Child, and he was Johnny LaRue, Tommy Shanks, Dr. Tongue, William B. Williams, and Mike Roach on Night School High Q. You could go on forever. John Candy was an incredible actor, and one that we obviously lost way too soon. And number 3 on my list. So, on to your number 2.
Good pick. Again, John Candy definitely made my top 10 short list, but I figured you might have him, so I left him off. All right, my number 2, I really think is going to be on your list, and I'm sorry if I'm stealing your thunder. I'm going to go with Dan Aykroyd.
Yes.
from Ottawa, Ontario. So I think most people know Dan Aykroyd as, a Saturday Night Live alumnus from the very early years. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was he on from the very beginning, or did he come in the second season?
SNL, first year.
First year. Yep. Okay. What I didn't know until I just looked him up this week was he actually won an Emmy as part of the writing staff for Saturday Night Live in 1977.
He's unheralded for his writing skills, let me tell you. And I'll go into that in a minute.
Yeah. Okay. Another quick trivia question for you.
Yeah.
Did you know two things? He was nominated for an Oscar. Do you know what movie he was nominated for an Oscar?
Driving Miss Daisy?
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah, I knew. The other piece of trivia that the people don't realize, but I always seem to remember, is he had a very small part in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Very small part. Like, he was in it for like a minute or two. But when the next time you happen to be watching Temple of Doom, keep your eyes open for Dan Aykroyd.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In any case, so started, got his big break on Saturday Night Live, and from there did a bunch of movies with, his good friend Belushi. They did The Blues Brothers in '81, which was a fantastic movie, arguably one of the best movies that spun out from Saturday Night Live, which we may talk more about in a bit.
The best one, yeah.
And then, of course, Ghostbusters. That was for me. My real introduction to Dan Aykroyd. I was 10 years old. Ghostbusters came out in the theater. I probably saw it 10 times that summer, paying I got to think it was about $2 admission at the time, and just saw it over and over again. When it came out on VHS video cassette, I begged my parents to buy me a copy, and they finally did. And I wore out the original Ghostbusters video. Just loved it so much. And then, Spies Like Us the following year in '85. One of my guilty pleasure movies is the movie Sneakers from 1992, which has a huge cast, including Dan Aykroyd. Love him in that. And he's just he's great. He's got so many credits to his name. He's still working. One of the roles I loved him in was Grosse Pointe Blank in 1997. He plays a hitman. Again, it's a comedy with John Cusack, but he's still in the comedy genre, but he's playing a character that was sort of different than what he had played before. Dan Aykroyd, always great, and I'm glad he's still putting out great material to this day. Strong actor, strong writer, and a very well-known and famous and proud Canadian.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great pick. I agree. And there's going to be some crossover for sure, like we said. So my number two, I'm going to go with one you already mentioned. That's Michael J. Fox. I agree with you. If Family Ties didn't do it for me, then definitely Back to the Future and Teen Wolf sort of cemented it. Michael J. Fox was one of my favorite actors from the 80s. And I think Alex P. Keaton is just about as iconic a character as you can absolutely get. Like, he basically defined an entire me generation of selfish conservatism, that was rampant in that decade too. And timing is everything. And Michael J. Fox came along at just the right time. And the guy had charisma. And who else could have made Alex P. Keaton likable and make him so likable? That's tough to pull off. And so he had amazing comedy and acting chops. And I think if you want proof of that, go back and find the dailies from Back to the Future when Eric Stoltz was originally cast to play Marty McFly. You can find them on the DVD or even on YouTube, I think. And you watch Eric Stoltz really struggle through that role. And then you realize, and that's nothing to take away from Eric Stoltz. He's a great actor, but it makes you realize just how good Michael J. Fox is. The handle that he had on that subtle comedy in that script is fantastic. He's one of a kind, brilliant actor. He finds these nuances in a performance that put him on another level than most other actors. And like I say, he was on one of my favorite TV shows of the 80s. He was in one of my favorite movies of the 80s. And best of all, he's Canadian. So that's why he's number 2 on my list. Moving on to your number 1.
And from what I understand, he's probably not so much anymore, but was a very decent hockey player.
Yes,
as I'm sure many of the people on our list are or were. I can just go into another pattern that I think we see with a lot of these guys. I don't know if it's just because they're Canadian, but especially with someone like him, you never ever heard anything bad about the guy. You never heard he's really difficult to work with, although Mike Myers is really tough to work with. So there are some Canadians are jerks, but Michael J. Fox, you never heard he was a bad guy. He was always good. You never heard any scandal. He was always just a decent guy. And he just strikes me as being somebody who, if I was an actor, I would just love to work with that guy. Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
No, amazing. Okay, so who do you have for your number one?
Okay, before I go to my number one,
Yes,
I got a couple honorable mentions.
For sure.
I'm putting together my
Yeah.
list.
Yeah.
And after we talked about this, we talked a few days ago and we said, hey, let's do this topic. And I immediately put pen to paper and I put down 10 names in like 30 seconds. And then I started thinking about it some more and I got 5 more names, no problem. And then I realized all the names were men. All the people that were coming to mind as these great Canadian performers were all men. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, well, okay, let's make sure that the women get at least, a shout out, because there are some fantastic female performers that are Canadian.
Sure.
But since part of our show was I'm going to do the ones that are my favorites, many of them stem from my childhood and they're men. But I want to give a shout out to 2 great female performers. The first one is Anna Paquin. She's from Winnipeg, Manitoba. She won an Oscar for the movie The Piano in 1993.
Youngest Oscar recipient ever.
Yes. She has gone on to gain a lot of fame. She was Rogue in 4 different X-Men movies. She was the star of the television show True Blood. She actually won a Golden Globe for her performance in True Blood in 2009. So definitely deserving to be on the list. I wanted to give her a shout out, even though she didn't quite make the cut for me.
And she was in a really good movie called The Squid and the Whale. If you ever get a chance to see it, it's really, really quirky, weird movie, kind of a character study film, but she was really good in that too.
Excellent. And then another one, and again, the only reason this one's not on my list is because I've never actually seen her in anything, and I'm not even sure if I'm going to pronounce this right. Tatiana Maslany. She is the young woman who is in Orphan Black. Now, the premise for Orphan Black, I think, had a 4 or 5 year run. It was from 2013 to 2017. It just finished like a couple of months ago. She was nominated for an Emmy in 2015 and won the Emmy in 2016 for this performance in the show. Essentially, the premise of Orphan Black is there's like all these clones of this same person exist in the show, and so on some episodes she plays as many as like 10 different parts and makes each character absolutely unique. You never for a second just think, well, that character is the same as that character. Although it's the same actress playing all of these roles, she really makes you believe that this could be, multiple women playing these parts. She's that good. I've only seen a handful of episodes of the show myself. She's young. She's up and coming. I think she's going to be someone to watch in the future. So I just felt we had to do our due diligence and give her a shout out as well. So good. Those are the ladies getting a couple of shout outs. But I'm going to move on to my number one, another gentleman. My namesake, Mike Myers, who you just mentioned was difficult to work with.
Yeah, very difficult.
So although Mike Myers and I share the same name, we are not related. Yes, they're spelled the same. Yes, we're both from Toronto. Yes, we both grew up in Scarborough, which is one of the neighborhoods in Toronto. Not related in any way, shape, or form. It's just coincidence. Although when I went away to university, people always ask me, oh, you're Myers from Scarborough. You related to Mike Myers? So I might occasionally have told the girls, yeah, he's my distant cousin, just to get that in. You always need an icebreaker when you're meeting new people.
You old dog.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave that story at that. But anyway, Mike Myers, I got to think that by this point, anyone who's listening to this podcast knows who this guy is. He was in Saturday Night Live from 1990 to 1994. He broke out with the movie Wayne's World in 92 and the sequel in 93. He's famous for the Austin Powers movie franchise, the first one from 97, The Spy Who Shagged Me in 99, Gold Member in 2002. And then, of course, as he got a little older, he wanted to do things that were a little more family friendly, and he voiced the character of Shrek. So Shrek first appeared on the screen in 2001 and then went on to make 3 more Shrek movies, as well as TV specials and all sorts of other stuff. Mike Myers has been in a ton of stuff. He's most well known for his comedic chops, but has done some pretty decent serious performances as well along the way. From what I understand, he is doing yet another Austin Powers movie, which I personally am looking forward to seeing.
Nice.
And I mean, you gotta keep in mind with these Austin Powers movies, he's playing Austin Powers, he's playing Dr. Evil, he's playing Fat Bastard, he's playing Goldmember, he's playing multiple characters. Which I mean, I think anyone who came from the kind of background like Saturday Night Live is going to be able to pull that off.
And Second City too, right? Where he gets started.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I don't think he makes any bones about the fact that he is playing these roles. Like, he's just having fun with them, and I've always enjoyed his work, and I look forward to continuing to enjoy his work. So he's my number one.
Yep, and he did do some drama. Like I think it was 54 was the one that they.
Yeah, that's what came to mind. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so my number one, you've already mentioned him. I'm going with Dan Aykroyd, and for me, one of the most defining influences on the modern American comedy genre is the original cast of Saturday Night Live. Okay, I've mentioned that on previous shows. That cast was incredible. They were all sort of uniquely talented in their own way. And I mentioned earlier how I like actors that are unique, right? And bring something kind of original to the table. And as far as I'm concerned, no one has ever been quite like, and never will be quite like Dan Aykroyd. His talent is so unique and distinct. Like there could never be anyone like him again. He has the ability to kind of rattle off these incredibly sophisticated technical jargon. Like it's like a machine gun. And, but then he's also perfectly comfortable playing the straight man most of the time. But the thing is, as I mentioned before, when you were talking about, he's one of the best comedy writers that has ever lived. And grossly underrated for his dramatic roles as well. We mentioned Driving Miss Daisy, and especially for me in My Girl. Like, he was outstanding in that movie. But it's obviously his comedy is always going to be best known for it, and deservedly so. I think if you go back and watch what he did on the old SNL, and I'm talking about like Weekend Update and the Bass-O-Matic 76 and the Refrigerator Repairman and Jimmy Carter, like the list goes on, right? But the thing was, too, his impact in comedy movies doesn't just make him great. In my mind, it makes him legendary. So you mentioned he started off with the Blues Brothers and Neighbors. And then when Belushi died, he did Dr. Detroit, and it bombed. Even though I loved that movie, but
yeah, I liked it too.
I think the movie bombed because a lot of people really associated him so strongly with Belushi, and they thought, oh, he can't do anything on his own. And then he went on to basically define the landscape of American comedy films forever with Trading Places and Spies Like Us, of course, Ghostbusters, as you mentioned. And funny enough, as a story, both Spies Like Us and Ghostbusters, he wrote those years before they got made. And he wrote them as a vehicle for him and Belushi to do. Belushi was supposed to play Venkman in Ghostbusters, and he was supposed to play Emmett Fitzhuman in Spies Like Us. And obviously, he died of a drug overdose in March of 82. So, Aykroyd pressed on, and he went on to make those movies with Bill Murray and Chevy Chase, obviously. But I just don't think Dan Aykroyd gets the credit he deserves. And when you think of the genre of sort of the modern comedy movie, he's probably one of the single most influential people behind it all. And if you think about it, it's funny how it all came about, because he wasn't even originally scheduled to audition for Saturday Night Live when they were putting together the original cast. He was doing Second City in Toronto with Gilda Radner, and she got the call to go down to audition for Saturday Night Live in New York. He didn't. But she needed to drive. She needed to get to New York. So he put her on the back of his motorcycle and drove her down to Manhattan. And she went into audition, and he waited in the hall. And then the casting guy comes out and is like, okay, you coming in for your audition? And he's like, what, me? And so he went in, and he just did that thing with that sort of machine gun rapid fire dialogue, and they were blown away. And it's just amazing how sometimes things come down to luck, or circumstance, and just being in the right place at the right time. But not only was he lucky and he got a break, but he had the chops to back it up. And like I say, he changed the landscape of comedy. So for that reason, he will always be my favorite Canadian actor of all time. So that was a good list. Good list.
Nice. Yeah, really, you mentioned a minute ago, you said that you don't think he gets respect, and that immediately made me think of now, I'm a huge fan of Saturday Night Live. I always have been. I don't miss it. I watch it live almost every single week, and when I can't watch it live, I record it and watch it the next day, because I don't want stuff to be ruined for me on social media. And there was an episode a couple years ago where one of the hosts, it might have been Melissa McCarthy, got into the 5-time hosts club, the 5-timers club, and Steve Martin was there, and Alec Baldwin was there, and they all had their smoking jackets on. And Dan Aykroyd was forced to 10 bar for all of the lounge. And they're like, so Aykroyd, you're very well respected. Like, come on, you were one of the original cast members. Aren't you a member of the 5-timers? He's like, the only way I get in here was to tend the bar. Like, and they were all making fun of him because he wasn't a 5-time host. And so when you said he doesn't get respect, like that's immediately where my mind
went. That was the joke of the sketch, right? Like,
yeah,
that's so cool. Oh man, I tell you, no, that was a great list. Okay, so are you ready to have some fun with Caveman? Okay, so this one's going to be a little bit different this week. So since you're a special guest on the podcast, I thought that I would throw you sort of right into the fire. So hopefully you're up to this. What we're going to do, Caveman, is we're going to play a round of the winner's circle. I
love this.
From the $100,000 pyramid.
Chris, you know me. I love game shows. I have 2 specialty channels on my cable box right now. One of them is
GSN?
Retro Music Video Channel, and the other is the Game Show Network.
Oh, I love the Game Show Network.
Oh.
The only thing is I get mad at the Game Show Network because now they show like a lot of newer shows or they produce their own shows. I want all the old stuff from like the 70s and 80s. I love that stuff. I could watch it all day long. So now you're going to be thrust into it. So you're going to be actually doing this. So, okay, so K-Ben, here's how it's going to work. I'm going to give you a list of movies or TV shows. Your job is to name the Canadian actor that appears in those movies or shows. Okay. You got it? I list the movies or shows. You name the Canadian actor. You all set? Okay. Go. Once Bitten. Earth Girl.
Jim Carrey.
Very good. Freaks and Geeks.
Seth Rogen.
Very good. Awake. Factory Girl. Shattered Glass. Jumper.
Hayden Christensen.
Oh, God, I hate that guy. Ticket to Heaven. Porky's. Police Academy. Mannequin. Big Trouble in Little China.
The girl from Sex and the City. What's her name? Kim Cattrall.
Yes. A Few Good Men. Flatliners. Stand
Kiefer Sutherland.
Parenthood. Ghostbusters.
Rick Moranis.
Yes. Oh, you're doing it!
I won $100,000. Mail the check.
Oh man, your check will be ready. We'll mail the check out to you. Absolutely, Yancy will mail the check out to you. Just contact him. I'll give you his. It's at Yancy Eaton on Twitter. And and if anyone wants to reach me, of course you can get me at C McBrien. And of course, Derek, you're available at Amaron_DM. Derek, thank you very much for joining us this week on the show. I really appreciate you filling in. That was awesome.
I had a great time as always, Chris. Thanks again for having me on, and I look forward to when Yancy comes back to do the shows. But if he can't make it on, I'm happy to try and continue to fill his shoes until he does.
Absolutely, we'll be in touch for sure. And the thing is, I think you went to the top of the pyramid in record time. I think you beat Billy Crystal's old record of 11 seconds.
4 seconds.
That was fantastic. You were great. So that was just exciting. So So if like I say, if you want to reach us on Twitter, that's how you can get a hold of us. You can always go to popgoesyourworld.com. All of our contact information is on there if you want to shoot us an email or anything like that. Hopefully, we're going to have Yancy Eaton back next week. Derek mentioned himself. If Yancy can't make it, you'll sit in again next week. Hopefully, that'll be great. Until then, it's Chris McBrien saying thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations.
Thank you for listening to the Pop Goes Your World podcast. Continue the conversation on Twitter at C McBrien or at Yancy Eaton. Please consider leaving a review for the podcast on iTunes or wherever you download and listen to the show.